Just 5 days after surviving an assassination attempt, Donald Trump is set to address the Republican National Convention to accept his party's presidential nomination in a speech designed to unify his party and the nation. The 78-year-old will address the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, hoping to build momentum towards a November victory over U.S. President Joe Biden. Trump's speech will mark the climax and conclusion of a massive 4-day Republican rally that drew thousands of conservative activists and elected officials to swing state Wisconsin. Apart from Trump, the most prominent speakers at the fourth day will be former Fox News host Tucker Carlson, wrestling icon Hulk Hogan, and Ultimate Fighting Championship President Diana White. Trump appeared each of the first 3 days with white bandage on his ear, covering a wound he sustained in the Saturday shooting. Some of his supporters have started sporting their own bandages on the convention floor. So far, the convention has showcased a Republican Party reshaped by Trump since he shocked the GOP establishment and won over the party's grassroots on his way to the party's 2016 nomination. Trump's rival have almost vanquished, which includes Senator Ted Cruz of Texas and Marco Rubio of Florida, former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis.
Are you?
Good evening.
Now, for more on this, we're joined by Ajay Chabria, who recently served as chief strategist and general consultant for Senator J.D. Vance's vice presidential campaign. Mr. Chabria, it's also the managing director at MAD Global Strategy. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you.
Now, 5 days after surviving an assassination attempt, Donald Trump will be addressing the Republican National Convention. And now he had said earlier that he's a changed man. And of course, he also mentioned that he's going to change his speech. His promise of talking of being softer and kinder. It's kind of hard to imagine him being that. But what do you expect?
Look, I think what we've seen at the convention, I was there last night for J.D. Vance's speech. It's a very unified convention. I've been to 5 Republican conventions in my life. This is one of the ones that has gone smoothly. Everyone is very positive. There's so much energy in the crowd. I think he's going to feed off that energy. I think he's going to give the crowd what they want. And I think he's really going to use this to surge into a very, very successful November election. And this could become a Republican sweep.
Let's also talk about Vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance. You have worked with J.D. Vance on his Senate campaign. Were you able to talk to him after he was chosen? And what kind of reactions did you get?
Yeah, sure. So I was with him all day yesterday. He is very humbled by the opportunity. He's 39 years old. I started working with JD when 8 years ago when his famous book first came out. He's a wonderful guy. He's very loyal. He's a brilliant political mind, a political policy mind as well too. But the most important thing is family is very important to him. And what he was able to do is to communicate a vision, a positive vision of what Donald Trump's America looks like for average Americans. Look, for America 4 years ago, people were doing really well. Everything was much more affordable than it is now. There's been high inflation. Food costs so much more. Gas costs so much more. And those are things that are really impacting regular working class Americans. And that's one of the bridges that he has, is that he's able to talk about what the plight of the working class American and what we can do to actually fix it.
Now, talking of that, when we look at the performance at the RNC, he looked and talked in a style very different from his other campaigns. If you look at them, he was much more softer than the other speakers as well. What did you think of the performance?
Look, I was very proud of him for his speech. I don't know that it was so much different than his other campaigns. I was on his campaign before. What is usually happens is the media portrays him as a cartoon character in some ways, but when he's actually able to talk directly to people, they see him for who he is and the immense policy knowledge that he has, but also how much he cares about the American people. So I think America was able to see who he was, and of course his wife Usha was introduced him, and she's also she's a secret weapon in my opinion.
Well, talking of that, we know that Vance is somehow not very well known to the American nation, right? What kind of strategy do you think will be taken by his campaign going forward? We know that Democratic vice presidential candidate, maybe Kamala Harris, has challenged him for a debate.
Well, we'll see if Kamala Harris is actually the vice presidential nominee, as you're hearing that
Hmm.
Biden might step down and someone else, maybe Harris takes over in some way. We'll see what the Democrats do there.
Hmm.
JD is probably the best debater that I've ever worked with, and I've worked with a lot of politicians. He is unbelievable at understanding complicated policy information and communicating in a very clear and concise manner. So I have no doubt that whoever he debates, he's going to do very well. And you said that people don't know who he is. Certainly, that's the case. But he also remember he had one of the most best-selling books in all time with Hillbilly Elegy, which was actually made into a Netflix movie too. So people, once they understand that the book they read or the movie that they saw, or they'll watch it again, they'll start to piece together who he is and where he comes from.
Right now, staying on that, now he did mention, he also mentioned swing states such as Wisconsin and Pennsylvania in his speech yesterday. We know that he's well known in Ohio, but how do you think he will be able to establish himself, to the nation?
So when you look at the presidential nomination, most of it's all done through different states. So Ohio's got our electoral votes, but the swing states, the states that really matter in this election are going to be Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. There's a lot of similarities with Ohio, with those states. So my belief is that the campaign will send him to those states, and they'll send to those states a lot to talk to working class voters, people that work for a living, the plumbers, people that are in the unions, those kinds of people, because he's able to communicate a message to them because he comes from that place. And when he talks to them, I think they're going to really vote for the Trump Vance ticket in a big way.
Right now, before I just let you go, in short, you mentioned Usha Vance. So I would like your reaction on this. JD Vance's wife happens to be from an Indian descent, and he comes from a very humble background. Was that it was a conscious strategy to choose him, considering Kamala Harris is also from an Indian descent? What kind of strategy was chosen there?
So I don't think that was the strategy at all. But the fact of the matter is, Usha is certainly. I mean, she's got wonderful parents. I've met them. Usha's an unbelievable, unbelievably poised woman in her own right. She's going to be a great asset for the campaign, however they use her. But remember, they have three very young kids, all under 10, and so she's going to be a mother first. But certainly, whenever she goes out there, people absolutely love her. And when I was out there on the floor of the convention last night when she was speaking, the crowd just absolutely loved her. So it's a wonderful thing to see.
Right, Joe. Thank you so much for joining us and giving your insights. We'll be looking forward how we see the campaigns develop.
Thanks so much.